Hello, my name is Atim Tongana, coming to you live from Baku in Azerbaijan. Welcome to A News. Here are the headlines. US President Trump says he is hopeful the Strait of Hormuz will open very soon as mediators work to secure a deal. 17 dead in Ukraine's capital as another night of Russian missile attacks rock Kyiv. And a milestone for Uzbekistan's space program as it launches its new Earth observation satellite. All right, so we begin with this top story. US President Donald Trump says the Strait of Hormuz could reopen very soon as Iran and Oman report progress in talks aimed at restoring shipping through the key energy route. Tehran, however, continues to deny holding direct negotiations with Washington, saying discussions are only underway with Oman.
Iran says negotiations with Oman on reopening the Strait of Hormuz are making progress, raising hopes of easing tensions and restoring traffic through the key energy route. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Esmail Baghaei says the talks are focused on establishing safe shipping routes while protecting the interests of both countries. Regional officials say the proposed arrangement would allow ships to enter the Persian Gulf through an Iranian-controlled route and exit through one managed by Oman, though no final agreement has been reached. Over in the US, officials also expressed optimism. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says a breakthrough could come soon, adding that reopening of the waterway would restore freedom of navigation and help stabilize global energy markets. President Donald Trump says the talks have gone well, but warns Iran of severe consequences if negotiations fail.
We're having very good discussions. They don't like to admit that, but it's a little bit disconcerting. You tell people like you, we're having wonderful discussions, and then some guy will come out of Iran and say, we have not met, we have not, it's just such a lie. All day long, you understand, it's just incredible.
However, Iran denies direct talks with Washington, saying negotiations are only with Oman. Qatar says it's working alongside Oman and Pakistan to support mediation efforts. Meanwhile, US Central Command says 451 commercial vessels have been redirected under the blockade of Iran since mid-July. Separately, the US says it's used a significant share of its long-range precision missiles during the Iran war, though officials say military capabilities remain intact. The Strait of Hormuz normally carries around 1/5 of global oil and gas shipments, making any agreement to reopen the waterway significant for energy markets.
Staying with the US, the Pentagon has rejected media reports in the US that its defense stockpiles have fallen to dangerously low levels since the start of the conflict with Iran. US Secretary of War Pete Hegseth dismissed the claims in a post on social media, calling the reports false and criticizing coverage of the CNN network. The channel, citing US military sources, said that key air defense systems had been significantly depleted since the start of the Iran war. It claimed about 4 out of every 5 available THAAD missile interceptors had been fired, along with half of all Patriot interceptors. Pentagon and White House officials say the US still has sufficient weaponry to respond to threats. An Indian-flagged commercial vessel has sunk after coming under attack near Yemen. Everyone on board was rescued as questions remain over who was behind the incident. All 14 seafarers survived the vessel capsized and sank in the Red Sea. India's shipping minister said the crew, including 13 Indians, were rescued by Yemeni Coastal Guard and taken to the port of Mocha. Yemen's internationally recognized government accused the Iran-aligned Houthis of carrying out the attack using an explosive-laden boat. The Houthis have not commented, while India's foreign ministry says it is coordinating with Yemeni authorities. Oil prices have eased on hopes of progress in the diplomatic efforts to end the war in Iran. Wall Street stocks also hit record highs on Tuesday, with investors betting that lower energy prices will feed into growth.
Global oil prices fell sharply to their lowest levels in 3 weeks after renewed optimism over a potential diplomatic agreement between the United States and Iran. Brent crude and U.S. West Texas Intermediate both dropped by around 4% during Tuesday's trading, reversing earlier gains of more than 2% driven by uncertainty over the negotiations. By the market close, WTI had fallen 5.69% to settle at $75.77 a barrel, while Brent showed 5.26% fall to $79.36. The decline followed comments from Qatar and the United States indicating that negotiations to reopen the strategically vital waterway were making progress. Qatar's foreign ministry said mediators, including Qatar, Oman, and Pakistan, were continuing efforts to broker a diplomatic solution. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said an agreement could be reached within days and noted that ships had already begun exiting the strait.
Jordan is hosting Arab and Islamic foreign ministers in Amman for emergency talks on developments in Jerusalem and tensions surrounding the city's holy sites. The meeting will bring together Arab and Islamic countries to discuss a coordinated stance from what Jordan says is an imminent threat of an Israeli takeover of the important Muslim site. Turkey will take part in the talks, with Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan representing Ankara. Other participants include officials from Arab states, Indonesia, Pakistan, Malaysia, as well as the Secretary General of the Arab League. Israeli Prime Minister says Israel will not withdraw its forces from current positions in Gaza unless Hamas fully disarms. Benjamin Netanyahu pushed back against a recent ceasefire proposal backed by U.S. President Donald Trump, saying the plan was not accepted by Israel and that his government had submitted its own changes. The proposed agreement called for Hamas to begin disarming while Israel would halt attacks and start withdrawing from parts of the Strip. Staying in Gaza, hospitals there are facing growing pressure as shortages of essential resources continue to affect medical services. One facility in Gaza City says it is struggling to maintain operations as doctors warn of increasingly difficult conditions inside critical care units.
A severe shortage of generator fuel and medical supplies is worsening the humanitarian situation in Gaza. At the Patients' Friends Association Hospital in Gaza City, doctors say limited fuel supplies have forced them to reduce electricity use. This has meant generators being shut down for several hours each day to preserve what remains.
At times, particularly during the night, we are forced to work under very difficult conditions, including in complete darkness. This also causes temperatures to rise because the air conditioners stop working in this enclosed area. In addition, the repeated power outages damage electrically powered medical equipment, particularly the incubators, which require a high electrical load to operate.
Doctors say the situation is particularly critical for newborn babies and children. Many require continuous monitoring with specialized equipment to provide stable conditions to survive. However, ongoing power cuts and shortages of essential resources are making their treatment increasingly challenging.
Many of the patients suffer from respiratory distress and shortness of breath. Nearly all of them are under 1 year of age. This creates enormous challenges for us. Frequent power outages further worsen the situation. The main reason is the lack of fuel needed to operate the generators. This will have a devastating impact on the children and could ultimately lead to their deaths.
The hospital is calling for urgent international assistance to ensure fuel and medical supplies can reach Gaza to allow for the continuation of essential health services.
After the break, 17 dead in Ukraine's capital as another night of Russian missile attacks rock Kyiv. Stay tuned. Welcome back to A News. Now, a series of Russian missile attacks have hit the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, killing at least 17 people and leaving dozens injured. Both sides exchanged long-range drone and missile attacks, with Ukraine also targeting Russia's Tula region.
Russian forces launched an overnight air attack on the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, early on Wednesday, triggering fires and causing widespread damage. Ukrainian officials say air raid alerts remained in effect for more than an hour. Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko said a warehouse near the city centre was destroyed, with rescue teams pulling 2 people from the rubble. He added that the strike sparked blazes at warehouses and storage facilities, while earlier reports that a 20-story residential building was on fire were later found to be incorrect. The city's military administration also reported an ammonia leak caused by the strike. Meanwhile, Russia said Ukraine carried out drone attacks on its territory on Wednesday. According to Tula Regional Governor Dmitry Milyayev, a logistics hub belonging to Russia's leading online retailer, Wildberries, was hit, injuring 1 person. The retail company said that staff were evacuated to safety and delivery operations had been redirected. Governor Milyayev also said 2 industrial facilities in the city of Novomoskovsk and the Uzlovaya district were damaged, along with 2 apartment buildings elsewhere in the Tula region. Both Russia and Ukraine continue to exchange long-range drone and missile strikes, with no immediate sign of a reduction in hostilities.
Ukrainian President Zelensky has condemned what he described as another deliberate Russian drone attack on a civilian in the southern city of Kherson. In a post on Telegram, Zelensky said a Russian drone targeted a man selling vegetables at a local market before striking nearby. The vendor survived but was injured. The Ukrainian leader accused Russian forces of deliberately hunting civilians and said such attacks have become a daily reality. The Ukrainian president called on the international community to increase pressure on Moscow. Ukrainian military intelligence says a North Korean missile unit has begun a deployment in western Russia and could be used in future strikes against Ukraine. Kyiv says the deployment may include around 90 personnel, up to 120 ballistic missiles, and 6 launchers based in Russia's Voronezh region. The move would expand military cooperation between Moscow and Pyongyang, which has already included North Korean supplies of missiles and artillery shells. Ukraine warns that more ballistic missiles could increase pressure on its strained air defenses. Russia and North Korea have not commented on the claims. Russia's biggest online retailer, Wildberries, is pressing ahead with plans for a major expansion in Kazakhstan. It comes after a series of Ukrainian drone attacks aimed at disrupting operations at its Russian depots.
Wildberries is expanding further beyond Russia with 260,000 square meters of new warehouse capacity now under construction in Kazakhstan. Trade Minister Arman Shakaliev says the facilities are part of a long-term expansion project and are due to be commissioned in the first quarter of 2027. The investment comes as the retailer continues to reorganize its logistics network following repeated Ukrainian drone attacks on its facilities inside Russia. Officials say Ukrainian drones struck 3 warehouses this week, including 2 operated by Wildberries. One caught fire near St. Petersburg, another was damaged in the Tver region, while a separate strike on an unnamed warehouse in the Moscow region killed 5 people and injured 10 others. Ukraine says it initially targeted Wildberries because of what it described as the company's role in supplying the Russian military. Moscow denies these allegations, calling the attacks on the retailer's facilities as acts of terrorism. Wildberries says more than a dozen of its sites have been attacked since the 18th of July. Founder and chief executive Tatiana Kim says the company is redistributing goods across its logistics network and working with the Russian government on measures to support affected vendors.
Ukraine's long-range drone campaign is increasingly targeting Russia's oil industry. New data shows and suggests that attacks have pushed oil refining to its lowest point in 2 decades.
Russian oil refining fell to its lowest level since May 2002 in July, after Ukrainian drone strikes targeted refineries, tankers, pipelines, and port infrastructure across the country. According to Bloomberg, Russian refineries processed an estimated 3.6 million barrels of crude a day last month, around 1/3 below seasonal norms and well below the 5.3 to 5.6 million barrels typically processed during the same period in recent years. Rather than targeting oil fields, Ukraine has focused on refineries, where crude oil is processed into products such as petrol, diesel, and jet fuel.
Russia has declined in its capacity to refine oil. And so when refining infrastructures are hit, Russia needs to send crude oil, non-refined oil, crude oil, which is less valuable. And, it's more expensive also to have to deal with new supply routes. And so all this adds up in withdrawing assets from the war chest.
Bloomberg says Ukrainian forces targeted 18 Russian refineries during July and carried out at least 30 attacks on oil infrastructure, including tankers, ports, and pipelines, the second highest monthly total since the full-scale invasion began. If additional strikes linked to the Caspian Pipeline Consortium are confirmed, July would become the busiest month on record for attacks on Russian oil assets. Ukraine's campaign also shifted during the month. Early strikes focused on refineries, including Russia's largest facility in Omsk, more than 2,500 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. Later, drones targeted tankers, port infrastructure and pipelines before refinery attacks resumed in the final days of July, including reported strikes on facilities in Perm, Ufa, and Ryazan. Analysts say the campaign is increasing pressure on one of Russia's most important export industries. Although Moscow can redirect some crude through Baltic ports, limited pipeline, storage, and tanker capacity is expected to constrain its ability to offset disruptions.
Georgia's ruling party has accused NATO of misleading the country and Ukraine for years over the possibility of future membership in the security alliance. Tbilisi mayor and Georgian Dream Party Secretary General Kaka Kaladze said both countries had repeatedly been told that NATO's doors were open, but alliance officials were now suggesting membership was unlikely. A Georgian parliamentary official said that if NATO rules out admitting Georgia, the country may need to pursue a broader foreign policy approach. "17 migrants are believed to have died attempting to reach Spain's Balearic Islands after a 15-day boat journey across the Mediterranean. Spanish authorities said 2 survivors from North Africa were rescued on Tuesday from a vessel found about 13 nautical miles southwest of Mallorca. Both were taken to hospital with signs of malnutrition and dehydration. The survivors said 19 people had originally been on board, although officials have not independently confirmed the reported deaths. A helicopter was deployed to search the area while ships nearby were alerted. Meanwhile, EU interior ministers have expressed solidarity with Spain after an urgent meeting held to address the border incident in Ceuta last week. More than 70 people died in the mass surge into Spanish enclave on the North African coast. Ross Cullen reports from Paris.
Well, ministers from around the European Union joined that call on Tuesday, including Laurent Nunez, the French Interior Minister, saying that we stand in solidarity with Spain and we support and hail Spain's management of the crisis. This is a far cry from the positions taken at the end of last week, 31st of July, 1st of August, with Italy so angry about the surge of 60,000 migrants into the Spanish semi-enclave of Ceuta that it temporarily suspended the passport-free Schengen travel zone agreement that it has with Spain. This is the EU-wide agreement, certainly continental EU. If you fly from France to Germany or take a train from Austria to Italy, for example, no passport checks when you're moving in the Schengen zone. Italy suspending that temporarily. Denmark and Finland agreeing with Rome. We heard even from France that said on one hand it wanted to offer assistance to Spain, on the other hand it was going to beef up its security along the southern border. So this urgent meeting on Tuesday of Interior Ministers, a chance to clear the air, try to dial down some of that rhetoric, and I'll just bring you some of the statement they released after the conclusion of that meeting, saying that there was a common understanding of the need to continue relentlessly fighting migrant smuggling networks, reinforcing returns, strengthening EU borders and building deep partnerships with third countries. Ross Cullen, A News, Paris.
Now, most of the migrants who crossed into Spain's North African enclave of Ceuta last week have now left. But for many families in neighboring Morocco, the search for missing loved ones continues.
At the border between Morocco and Spain, anxious parents are searching for any news of children who disappeared during last week's crossing to Ceuta. One of them is the mother of 23-year-old Haitham al-Haddad. She has not heard from her son since he left on the 30th of July. The only sign he had reached the Spanish city was a video circulating on Instagram.
I'm dying of fear. I cannot focus at home or at work, nothing. I had a mental breakdown. I have diabetes. He is my only son.
Mokhtar said he searched hospitals and a morgue in Tetuan, but still could not find his son, Mohammed. Not every family was left without news. Mohammed Reda said his teenage son and daughter called from Ceuta after receiving medical treatment, food and clothing, and have stayed in touch every day. Reda said his children decided to leave after seeing Instagram posts claiming Ceuta was open. The posts helped fuel the mass movement by spreading misinformation about migrants' chances of remaining in the territory and reaching Europe. Spanish authorities say most of those who crossed have now left the enclave and returned to Morocco.
Interior Minister Fernando Grande Marlaska said around 70,000 of the roughly 72,000 migrants had departed by Tuesday. He also told European Union counterparts the provisional death toll from the border crisis had risen to 75.
Meanwhile, hundreds of migrants remain stranded in Ceuta after last week's crossing. Among them is a Sudanese man who says reaching Spanish territory has fulfilled a dream years in the making, despite the uncertainty that now lies ahead.
Days after reaching Ceuta, hundreds of migrants remain camped along the beach, relying on aid while they wait for decisions about their future. Among them is 29-year-old Ahmed Haroun from Sudan's Darfur region, who says years of hardship and the hope of supporting his remaining family drove him to make the journey.
I have maybe families, they wait me and I want to help them. I have many dreams. And the first dreams to me, just I want to help my last family. You know why I said last? Because I lost a lot of them. Maybe there is just 3 or 1 of them, and I want to last. And I want to help them. I don't want to lose that people still. And I will fight for them. I will fight. I will do anything just to help them.
Haroun says he spent 4 years waiting for the chance to reach Spain and accepted the risks, including the possibility of being deported.
Finally, maybe I think I achieved with my dreams. If they deport me out, I don't care. All my dreams is just I introduce Earth. And right now, just we ask about humanity in 3 days. That first 3 days. After that, they look after us and they take care about us and they give us that things we need. And right now, just we excited to hear what they will say about us.
The mass arrival has reignited debate across Europe over migration and border management, with EU ministers pledging closer cooperation to tackle people smuggling networks and strengthen external borders. But for those waiting on Ceuta's beaches, the immediate concern is far more personal: whether they will be allowed to remain in Spain or be sent back.
Europe's prolonged heat wave and lack of rainfall are driving major rivers to record lows. The worsening drought is now disrupting energy production, transport and water supplies, while exposing long submerged objects and historic warnings of earlier crises.
A severe drought and successive heat waves are pushing major European rivers towards record lows, exposing long-hidden landmarks and threatening water, transport and energy supplies. In Poland, temperatures are approaching 40 degrees Celsius in the south. Sandbanks have emerged along the Vistula, while the San River has fallen to an historic reduced level. Drought alerts are in place nationwide.
The south part of Poland is very dry. We have 71 alerts, dry alerts in all Poland, and it's 320 stations, water stations, when we have the really low flow on the rivers. Even in 30 stations, water stations, we have the lowest ever level of the river.
Over in Germany, the shrinking Rhine has revealed a sunken fishing boat last seen in 2022, along with so-called hunger stones. The historic markers, including some dated 1857 and 1947, warn future generations of drought and possible famine. Further downstream in the Danube, sandbanks and an old bridge wreckage in Budapest have been exposed. Hungary's Pax nuclear plant, which normally supplies about half the country's electricity, is operating at around 10% capacity because of a lack of water for cooling. On Monday, the Prime Minister said the weather will change by Friday.
There are a few critical days left. Today and tomorrow are certainly that. I ask everyone to continue the national unity that has developed in the country. Let's do what our country demands. And it's good to see that there's already light at the end of the tunnel, because the meteorology predicts a cold front for Friday, and the temperature will drop significantly. Until then, however, there will be very hot days.
In Romania, authorities used controlled explosions on Monday to divert water from the Danube River, using rocks as a temporary barrier, towards the Cernavodă nuclear plant. One of its 2 reactors has already been shut down, reducing output from a facility that normally supplies around a fifth of Romania's electricity.
French authorities have detained more than 400 people, including 156 minors, over suspected links to wildfires since the start of summer. Around 14,000 separate fires have been recorded across the country this summer, according to the French Interior Ministry. The figure includes both deliberate and accidental blazes. In the southern Var department, firefighters are continuing to battle a blaze that has been burning for 2 weeks. 16 regions remain on alert for more extreme weather, with high temperatures forecast until at least Friday. Wildfires are also intensifying in western United States. An arson investigation is underway in Washington state, while another rapidly spreading blaze is threatening communities in California.
US authorities have arrested a man on suspicion of starting the Old Trails fire near Spokane in Washington state, which burned more than 10,000 acres on Saturday. That's around 40,000 squared kilometers. At least 700 buildings have been destroyed and hundreds more damaged, mostly in residential areas. Some 64,000 people were placed under evacuation orders on Monday. Aaron Farinacci has been jailed on a $1 million bond and faces a first-degree arson charge.
About 5 p.m. this afternoon, we executed an arrest warrant and search warrant in the city of Spokane, and we took 37-year-old Aaron Farinacci, a convicted felon, into custody on a single charge of arson in the first degree.
The causes of the other 2 fires remain under investigation. Officials said information from a witness helped investigators identify the suspect. The 3 Spokane area fires are the highest firefighting priority in the United States and remained uncontained on Tuesday. Authorities also urged people not to fly drones near the fires after illegal flights forced firefighting aircraft to remain on the ground on Monday. In California, hundreds of firefighters are tackling the Gann fire, which has burned nearly 6,400 acres. Evacuation orders remain in place for nearby communities, with the blaze still at zero containment.
All right, after the break, a milestone for Uzbekistan's space program as it launches its first new observation satellite. Stay tuned. Welcome back to A News. Now, a prominent Turkish-American engineer has challenged author Nassim Nicholas Taleb over his support for Ruben Vardanyan. In an open letter, Ergan Kirkovali called on Taleb to reconsider his position and take a closer look at Vardanyan's record.
Turkish-American engineer, researcher and writer Ergun Kirlikovalı has criticized author Nassim Nicholas Taleb over his stance on Ruben Vardanyan. In an open letter, Kirlikovalı urged the Nobel Prize-winning author to reconsider his public position. The letter came after Taleb said on X that he would not lecture in Baku while Vardanyan remains in prison. Kirlikovalı said Taleb should apply the same critical analysis to Vardanyan's record that he applies to financial and political risks. He argued that Vardanyan's public image as a philanthropist should also be examined alongside allegations linked to his financial and political activities. Kirlikovalı referred to investigations involving Troika Dialogue and the so-called Troika Laundromat, claiming the network was connected to offshore financial schemes. But who is Ergun Kirlikovalı? The Turkish-born chemist and polymer scientist moved to the United States in 1978. He developed highly specialized coatings used in U.S. Navy and Air Force programs. His work included advanced materials associated with the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber and the F-35 fighter jet. Kurlakovala also said more attention should be paid to the suffering of Azerbaijani civilians during the Karabakh conflict. He referred to the displacement of Azerbaijanis and the Hojali tragedy. He said accountability and respect for the rule of law are essential for lasting peace. Kurlakovala ended his letter by calling on Taleb to reconsider his position and examine Vardanyan's activities more closely.
Uzbekistan has reached a milestone in its space program. The country's new Earth observation satellite, Samarkand 2028, has successfully entered orbit following a joint mission with China. Officials say the satellite will support agriculture, environmental monitoring, and disaster management. Sybil Rajapova reports from Tashkent.
Uzbekistan has successfully launched its Earth observation satellite, Samarkand 2028, from China's Haiyang East Space Launch Platform. The mission was carried out jointly by Uzcosmos and Chinese company Starvision. Officials say it is one of the largest international space projects in Uzbekistan's history and a major step forward for the country's national space program. Samarkand 2028 is a hyperspectral satellite. Unlike conventional satellites, it captures data across more than 20 spectral bands, allowing it to analyze crops, water resources, land use, and environmental conditions in much greater detail. One of its key features is an artificial intelligence module developed by Uzcosmos engineers. The system processes part of the satellite's data while still in orbit, reducing transmission time and speeding up analysis on the ground. The data will support agriculture, water management, environmental protection, urban planning, and the early detection of natural disasters.
So designing and training of this AI model took about 9 to 10 months because we had to start from the dataset preparation, discussing about AI model architecture and design, because this AI model will work on orbit. That means on the board of the satellite. That's why there are lots of factors that will affect the model processing, such as radiation, overheating, and so on and so on. And these factors are negatively affecting. That's why we had to construct the model that will be able to work in such harsh conditions.
Besides Samarkand 2028, Uzbekistan also plans to launch its Mirzo-Ulugh satellite in 2028, the first national scientific satellite project. This is a 6U format CubeSat, a 12-kilogram lightweight modular satellite platform capable of carrying advanced scientific and Earth observation payloads. It is currently being assembled and tested together with international partners, such as Japan's Q-Tech Institute to advance Earth remote sensing and space research. The satellite is named Samarkand 2028 to mark the city's role as host of the 79th Astronautical Congress in that year. The mission also strengthens scientific cooperation between Uzbekistan and China and will help train a new generation of Uzbek specialists in space technologies and artificial intelligence. Cyril Rajab reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A News.
Meanwhile, a piece of a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket is believed to have collided with the moon after spending more than a year drifting through space. It's the size of a school bus and weighs 4 metric tons and was said to hit the Einstein crater around 6:35 GMT this morning at roughly more than 8,600 kilometers an hour. SpaceX says the collision is unintentional. Most rocket stages re-enter Earth's atmosphere after completing their mission. This booster remained in deep space without fuel because the January 2025 lunar lander mission required more thrust than missions closer to Earth.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Now, Pakistan and Iran are looking to expand trade and investment ties. Meeting in Islamabad, officials agreed to advance negotiations on a proposed free trade agreement while improving trade and transport connectivity. Mariam Zia reports from Islamabad.
Pakistan and Iran have reaffirmed their commitment to increase bilateral trade to $10 billion, agreeing to expedite negotiations on a proposed free trade agreement. The deal was reached at the 10th Pakistan-Iran Joint Trade Committee meeting in Islamabad on Tuesday. Pakistani officials said both sides will work to remove barriers at the border, including within customs procedures and cargo movement. They also agreed to expand joint border markets, strengthen customs cooperation, and introduce electronic data interchange to facilitate trade. They proposed expanding trade and logistics cooperation through the ports of Karachi and Gwadar, while identifying electricity trade and regional connectivity as areas with further economic potential. Iranian officials described Pakistan as a long-term strategic trading partner. The meeting brought together a 22-member Iranian official delegation and a 16-member business delegation representing sectors including logistics, shipping, energy, and manufacturing. The discussions underscore efforts by both neighbors to improve regional connectivity and facilitate trade across South and West Asia, with the proposed free trade agreement expected to play a central role in that effort. Mariam Zia, A News, Islamabad.
Now, staying with the story, I'm joined by the chairman of the Belt and Road Initiative for Sustainable Development, Kaiser Noab. Hello and welcome to A News.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, Pakistan and Iran have talked for years about boosting trade, but progress has remained limited. What is different this time around, and what could actually move this relationship from political promises to real economic results?
This is really a very important question. Pakistan and Iran, they committed and they promised up to lead the business up to 10 billion bilateral trade. But this figure wasn't achieved even in the previous fiscal years as well. We have seen that 2024 to 2025, the trade between Pakistan and Iran was 3.1 billion. And during the first 10 months of the 2025 to 2026, this trade has been to 2.28 billion US dollar, which is still far below the target. But this is now a very interesting situation, keeping in view the current mediating role which Pakistan has played between Iran and the US during the current war and the ongoing as well. And I think Pakistan probably will get a very good leverage of these all sanctions on Iran as well. So this not only just that these are political promises between the two leaderships, but there are some international complications as well. Mostly in the form of banking, the transactions, and those other sanctions, which are not letting both the countries to achieve this target of $10 million.
Now, with the negotiations on a free trade agreement advancing, what sectors are most likely to benefit? Is it energy? Is it agriculture, transport, or something else? And what could still hold the deal back?
So Pakistan and Iran both sharing around 900 plus kilometer of the border. There is a quite a good number of opportunities, both including energy. Pakistan like a lot of energy crisis, and I think those crises can be covered by the Iranian sides by supplying the energy. And I think we can see also Pakistan's ports, Karachi and Gwadar, which is more strategically important due to the current situation in the region from the Gulf side. So I think Iran can also utilize the Pakistani the ports for their transportation of the different materials and also import export both way. And I think the further beside the energy and the transportation, there can be a good number of exchange between agriculture. This currently is the mango season, and I think the mangoes export or some other similar fruits and vegetable exports can be done between both countries as well. Beside this, Iran has also excelled its very good improvement in the pharmaceutical sector, and also similarly in genomics and genes and the data. And I mean, I think there are many things that in the health side as well, both countries can cooperate. And I believe that Pakistan side has a very good cooperation and has very good IT experts, which can be also exports to Iran as well. So there is a quite number of matching capabilities of win-win cooperation between the countries, both countries. And further, I mean, just enhancing on that side, we can see that Iran was the first country to recognize Pakistan, and I think we have a very good brotherly relation, and I think that can be improved by further enhancing the bilateral trade.
Sure. There's quite a number of benefits you mentioned there, Mr. Kaiser. So now, if Iran faces extensive international sanctions, how realistic is it for Pakistan then to significantly expand trade and investment ties with Tehran without facing pressure or the consequences from Western partners?
So naturally, Pakistan, which recently had played a very sincere role of mediation between the different stakeholders, and I think Pakistan's and Iran both are wisely moving this step, just like these talks happening this week. And I think during this critical time, if Pakistan and Iran are coming closer, Pakistan should also utilize the position of being mediator and can benefit from that role, to not being in pressure or to be not blackmailed by the Western and or those who put the so-called sanctions. And I think these kind of things Pakistan should resist, and Pakistan should diplomatically play its role to further decrease such kind of tensions of those sanctions, which actually is in the not favor of Pakistan. Of course, it's not in the favor of Iran as well, but we can have a neighbor, so we cannot change a neighbor, and I think we should have a better understanding and a better trade or other relations with our neighbors.
You mentioned a number of benefits that could come as a result of this agreement. So now, is this economic just purely for economic trade purposes, or is it also part of a broader geopolitical shift as Pakistan tries to balance its relationships with Iran, China, and the Gulf states, as well as the United States?
Pakistan's current diplomatic role was very much appreciated by different stakeholders, both inside the country and outside as well, globally. Pakistan balanced its position and its relation with China, which is a key player in the global affairs, and especially when it comes to trade, economy, or even political as well. Many multilateral forums are led by now Chinese, and I think they are promoting much better harmony and win-win cooperation than the previous one, who are more unilateral form. And I think Pakistan also have a very good relation with Saudi Arabia. We recently signed a strategic bond, defense bond with them, and at the same time we have a very mutual, respectful relation with Iran as well, and other Gulf countries, including Qatar, and similarly the others as well. So I believe that Pakistan's position is now very clear, that we as a nation and we as a country would always promote peace, harmony, and all those international norms and form of diplomacy. And I think Pakistan proved itself globally, and I think this is somehow that comes to the credit of the leadership of Pakistan. And I believe that the United States itself has a strong trust when we see this mediation role, and not only the mediation role, but hosting the talk in Islamabad, and then in Geneva it's called Islamabad talk as well. So I believe that at the same time we kept the balance with China and with the US both ways as well. So there is no sign of any mistrust or any kind of political imbalance between those countries' relation with Pakistan.
Mr. Kaiser Noab, thank you so much for your insights on A News. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, Afghanistan has rejected allegations by Chinese and Pakistani officials that armed groups are using Afghan territory to threaten neighboring countries. However, both countries have agreed to strengthen counter-terrorism coordination with Kabul. Our correspondent Tamim Bahiz has the details in Kabul.
Afghanistan says it does not pose a threat to any neighboring country. That's the message from Kabul's chief spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid, who has firmly dismissed claims made by Chinese and Pakistani representatives that militant groups are operating from Afghan soil. Mujahid said Afghanistan is secure and its territory is not being used to launch attacks against other countries. He added that no unauthorized armed groups are operating inside the country. He said that any concerns or what he called propaganda about Afghanistan's security were the responsibility of those making the claims. The spokesperson also said that security challenges within other countries are their internal affairs and that Afghanistan should not be blamed. His comments followed talks between Chinese and Pakistani envoys who raised concerns about the TTP, the Pakistani Taliban, and ETIM, known as the East Turkestan Islamic Movement, allegedly operating from Afghan territory. Both countries agreed to strengthen counter-terrorism coordination and diplomatic engagement with Afghanistan. Despite these differing positions, China has continued to play a mediating role between Afghanistan and Pakistan, encouraging dialogue to reduce tensions and improve regional stability. Tamim Bahiz in Kabul, A News.
All right, that's the news for this hour. Thank you for joining me, Tim Tongana, and the A News team behind the scenes. Stay tuned to the channel A News for all the latest updates. Goodbye.